Secretary Achary, Sri Uhuru Pasmiti, Srimati Vipadas Munshi, the Honorable Leader of the Opposition, the Lok Sabha, and other senior functionaries of the Congress Party sitting here, and friends. Actually, I have a little problem in speaking in Hindi. I mean, making a speech in Hindi. I can talk to you in Hindi, but making a speech is a different thing. But I will try to switch over to Hindi in between. So, with your permission, I will speak in English, if that is okay. Actually, I was listening to Deepa Dasmunchi ji, and she has said whatever I wanted to say. So my task has become slightly lighter. In fact, I was thinking of making a speech for 1 hour. Because after all, we are speaking about the Constitution. So naturally, Constitution is the largest, the longest Constitution in the world. So when you speak about Constitution, naturally you require more time. But anyway, here I found my time was reduced to 20 minutes and 10 minutes for question and answer. So accordingly, I will adjust this. I will deal with a certain aspect. So the topic for discussion is the making of the Indian Constitution. So I will go into that. And I will concentrate on that specifically. So today, 26th November, is being celebrated as the Constitution Day. Now this actually should remind us of certain unforgettable contexts in the history of the freedom struggle and also in the history of the Constitution. Constitution was adopted on 26 November 1949 after almost 3 years of very hard work, and it was adopted on this day and signed by the President of the Assembly, Dr. Bhawan. But this Constitution was brought into effect after 2 months, that is on January 26. On January 26, India became a republic, sovereign democratic republic, and the Constitution came into force. Why is it that the Constitution was brought into force on January 26 when it was adopted on 26th of November the previous year? That day, 26th January, is a day of very great significance. It was on 26th January 1929 that the All India Congress Committee passed a resolution which was chaired by Pandit Jawahar Nehru, who had become the president, asking for Purna Swaraj, that is complete independence. That was the demand made by the All India Congress Committee in that Lahore session. Congress was, of course, has been demanding dominion status for India, but it was on that day that the Congress demanded full independence as a sovereign republic. And 26th January was celebrated as Independence Day by the Congress. But Nehru used to hoist the tricolor on that day. But independence came on some other day, that is August 15, and therefore this day it was decided to celebrate this as a Republic Day, and the Constitution brought into effect on this particular day. So this is a bit of history I thought I should tell you, because the younger generation particularly may not be aware of all this. Perhaps they do not want to know. I do not know how many of our boys and girls who are studying in colleges know this bit of history. Because these days have very great significance in the history of our freedom struggle. The Constitution is the fundamental law of the land. All our laws emanate from the Constitution. But the Constitution is not a mere aggregate of articles and clauses and schedules. As was said earlier, our Constitution is the longest. It has 395 articles. Of course, some articles have been taken away. We have 395 articles and 12 schedules in this Constitution. The reason for making the Constitution so lengthy is that India is such a complex country with so much of diversity, and we did not want many things to be left to Parliament to decide. They wanted to do it themselves, give proper guidance and deal with issues as much as they could. That is why it was made very lengthy. In fact, this is a criticism which is leveled against the Indian Constitution. Ivan Jennings, etc. says that it is unnecessarily lengthy. Because in other constitutions, they deal with issues at the macro level, and the micro level issues are dealt with ordinary laws made by Parliament. But here there was a departure. And then, the Constitution contains not merely articles and schedules, it contains the philosophy, a vision, and the goal. That is the most important thing about the Constitution. But I will deal with that a little later, of course within the time that is available. But I will take you to the history of the Constituent Assembly, because the subject is making of the Constitution, so naturally I have to speak about that. The Constituent Assembly, as a serious issue, used to be discussed by the Congress Party in its various forums as early as in 1935. Discussion has started as early as in 1935, and in 1938, Pandit Jawahar and Nehru had made a very, very strong, strident demand for the setting up of a Constituent Assembly to draw up a constitution for free India. And Nehru was very particular that this Constituent Assembly should not have any participation of the Englishmen in that. He wanted this to be entirely manned by Indians. He made that demand, and the next year perhaps the working committee also made an official demand for the setting up of a Constituent Assembly. But the British government did not listen to that. They had other preoccupations, because by the time the Second World War had broken out, so its attention was diverted, and they did not pay any attention to this, and the purpose intensified the agitation. 1942, Gandhiji launched the Satyagraha, the Quit India movement, and it was only after the end of the Second World War that the British government paid attention to this issue. By that time, they had formed the opinion that India should be given some kind of freedom, means Romanian status and all that. And for that there should be a constitution, naturally there has to be a constitution. And for a constitution there must be an assembly. So this idea crystallized at that time. And most of you are aware of this, that the cabinet mission was sent to find out what the Congress thought about this. A lot of discussion took place, and initially the cabinet mission's plan was not accepted because its plan or the proposal that was put forth by the cabinet mission contained the seeds of partition. Therefore, it was rejected. But later, there sent a cabinet delegation that brought the proposals, and by that time, there were many compulsions, and ultimately, the leadership of the Congress party agreed to have a Constituent Assembly. And this Constituent Assembly was constituted in 1946. Now, the most important thing, or the most interesting thing about this Constituent Assembly is that it was elected indirectly by the provincial assemblies in the British India. The provincial assemblies, all the provincial assemblies were elected by that time, so they were to elect the members. But the cabinet's plan, or the cabinet mission plan was to have communal electorates. That means the population of India would be divided into three groups: the Muslims, the Sikhs, and then the general. This was the structure of the electorate. And then the seats in the assembly were to be divided among these three, according to the strength of the population of each group. So there was no other option, this was accepted, elections were held, and as was expected, the Congress party got majority of the seats on the general side, and Muslim League led by Muhammad Ali Jinnah got majority from all those provinces, East Punjab, Balochistan, and Sindh, and so on. So the assembly met. Although the Muslim League participated in the elections, they did not attend the meeting, because by that time the political developments had taken place. Political developments had taken such a turn that a separate country, nation for Pakistan, as Pakistan, a separate nation for the Muslims, was perhaps irreversible. It was very difficult to stop that, and there was tacit approval of the British for that proposal. So they did not attend this. They said, we want separate Constituent Assembly. We do not want to be a part of this. They did not attend this at all. Finally, you know what happened in 1947. Mountbatten plan came, and then the partition of India took place, and then the Constituent Assembly met separately. They had a Constituent Assembly of their own, and our Constituent Assembly, with a reduced number, around 299 members, our Constituent Assembly met here under the chairmanship of presidency of Dr. Rajendra Prasad. This Constituent Assembly worked through committees. So many committees were set up. The most important committee that was set up by this assembly was the drafting committee, because they were to draft the whole constitution. And that drafting committee was chaired by no less a person than Dr. Bimla Ambedkar, a great jurist and a great thinker of modern times. So it was under his chairmanship that the Indian Constitution took shape. And there were, of course, other committees. One committee was chaired by Pandit Jawahar Nehru. Another committee was chaired by Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel. In fact, Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel chaired the Committee on Fundamental Rights. And Pandit Jawahar Nehru chaired the Committee on the Powers of the Union. Like that, there are so many other stalwarts who are chairing different committees set up by the Constituent Assembly. So the committee started work, and finally, after 3 years of hard work, the Constitution was produced, and it was adopted on 29th November. Now, I have almost come to the end of my speech. But I will give you just one point and then I'm done. When we look at the Constitution, first we see the preamble of the Constitution. What exactly is the preamble and what is the significance of the preamble? Preamble gives you the idea about the direction in which the Constitution goes. It reflects the vision. It reflects the entire philosophy of the Constitution. And it reflects the goal that has been set to be achieved by the state. The preamble says, "We, the people of India, resolve to constitute India into a sovereign, democratic republic." When the Constitution was framed, these were the words: sovereign, democratic republic. Later on in 1976, the words socialist and secular were added to this. Now this preamble, how did this preamble take this particular shape? It has a history. When the Constituent Assembly met for the first time in 1946, December, Pandit Nehru presented the objective resolution. Because I know that all of you are familiar with all this. The objective resolution. Objective resolution was for stating the objects of this Constitution. And there, that resolution contained the ideas of liberty, equality and fraternity. Liberty, equality and fraternity, and also the idea of justice, social, economic and political. These are some of the ideas which were contained in the objective resolution. And those very ideas were incorporated in the preamble. In fact, the preamble is just a restatement of the objective resolution which was moved by Pandit Jawahar Nehru. So it was actually Nehru's vision which permeates the whole Constitution, which suffuses the whole Constitution. And where did these ideas come from? Liberty, equality and fraternity. This has come from the French Revolution. These were the slogans raised by the French Revolutions. And the liberty, freedom, that concept was there in the American Declaration of Independence in 1776 by Thomas Jefferson. This was one of the major statements in that Declaration of Independence, which is quoted all over the world, that man is created as equal. All men are equal, and men have inalienable rights of liberty and equality. These were stated in the American Declaration of Independence, and that statement, in fact, inspired all the freedom-loving people in the whole world. Everywhere, people were inspired by this. Then the French Revolution also was inspired by this American Declaration of Independence. Certainly, what happened in Europe and America that reached here. In fact, Pandit Nehru he had very close associations with the intellectual community of Europe. You know, Bernard Shaw was his friend. So was Bertrand Russell. And he was very friendly with Albert Einstein. and he was very friendly with Harold Asky. All these thinkers of 20th century, Europe, were his personal friends. And naturally, he internalized these ideas. And he wanted to put these ideas in the constitution. And that is what he did. Because Pandit Nehru wanted India to become a secular, liberal democracy. Secular, liberal democracy. And that is how the constitution has been fashioned. Preamble has the stamp of Pandit Nehru and his vision. And that is the most important part, the gateway to the constitution. We enter the constitution through the preamble. Now, I think I should stop here, because I had in mind to speak about fundamental rights and things like that, but that will take a lot of time. I do not want to do that. I can close it here, and I thank you very much. Of course, I can take the question.